I'll begin with business questions. Shadow Leader of the House, Jesse Norman.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Will the Leader of the House give us the forthcoming business?
House.
I shall. The business for the week commencing the 31st of March includes Monday the 31st of March, consideration of Lord's messages to the non-domestic ratings and multiplier and private schools bill, followed by remaining stages of the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education, Transfer of Functions, etc. Bill, Lords. Tuesday the 1st of April, if necessary, consideration of Lord's messages, followed by second reading of the Product Regulation and Meteorology Bill, Lords. Wednesday the 2nd of April, if necessary, consideration of Lord's messages, followed by motion to approve the draft infrastructure planning, onshore wind and solar generation order 2025, followed by motion to approve the draft motor vehicles driving licence amendment number 2 regulations 2025, followed by motion to approve the draft whiplash injury amendment regulations 2025. Thursday, the 3rd of April, general debate on the impact of digital platforms on UK democracy, followed by general debate on access to sport and PE in schools. The subjects for these debates were determined by the Backbench Business Committee. Friday, the 4th of April, the House will not be sitting. The provisional business for the week commencing the 7th of April includes Monday, the 7th of April, general debates, subjects to be confirmed. Tuesday the 8th of April, general debate on the potential merits of awarding a posthumous Victoria Cross to Blair Main, followed by general debate on matters to be raised before the forthcoming adjournment. The subjects for these debates were determined by the Backbench Business Committee. The House will rise for the Easter recess at the conclusion of business on Tuesday the 8th of April and return on Tuesday the 22nd of April.
Shadow Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I hope I may start by thanking the whole House for their wonderful messages and condolences in the last business questions. I couldn't be more grateful, and I particularly single out the Leader for her very gracious remarks. If I may turn from fathers to mothers, of course, this Sunday is Mother's Day. The infant shadow leaders have been instructed, not that they needed it, as to how to manage the moment and the occasion. I'm sure that the whole House will want to join me in celebrating mothers at the weekend, and will want to express themselves in all kinds of ways to thank our mothers and the mothers we have amongst us for all the work that they do. Madam Deputy Speaker, this has been the week of the spring statement, and the House will recall the October budget in November of last year. As it was described, a once-in-a-generation budget with no tax rises to follow. Now, what we've seen this week is that the Chancellor's own growth forecast just 4 months later has been halved. She has increased cuts to welfare benefits. That follows the interesting strategy of abolishing the NHS, England just having fired all the team running it. The tax burden is on track to hit a record high in 27-28. Now, we should give credit where credit's due. The Chancellor has protected capital investment. That's a very important decision and a correct one. But there have also been wheezes. I'm sorry to say she's somewhat pulled the wool over the OBR's eyes in relation to housing growth. Housing growth has been the government's new get-out-of-jail-free card, never included before in an OBR estimate, and very doubtful, and already, of course, downgraded from 1.5 million houses to 1.3 million houses, but very unlikely that it will happen in any case, even at those levels, because of the upheaval in local government that is being planned. Meanwhile, the immensely damaging Employment Rights Bill goes entirely unscored economically by the OBR. We'll see what the OBR says next time round about that particular piece of legislation. The brutal fact is that the government has claimed to prioritise growth, but growth has halved since it came to power. It's talked about little else, but even its own forecasts do not show growth getting even back to 2% by the end of the decade. And every major independent expert forecast of the economy's future growth is lower than that of the OBR. Yeah. Now, if we look more closely, what do we see? Spring Statement isn't really about work at all. It's really about moving people from welfare into lower-paying welfare. The cut to universal credit announced last week has been followed by a freezing of universal credit. Why as it appears to hit the Chancellor's own fiscal headroom number to the decimal point. Last week we had all the rhetoric of the moral case for nudging people back into work, but now it seems that this is actually an accounting exercise. And the policy rationale, the whole economic and moral justification for the policy, seems to have been lost sight of. The second point is the question of whether artificial intelligence, which the government has greatly emphasised, will actually have the effect of increasing growth. The Chancellor suggested that this idea was somehow obvious and conventional wisdom, but actually it's very far from true. The Nobel Prize winner Bob Solow, economist, famously said that the effects of the IT revolution could be seen everywhere except in the economic numbers. Other countries are scaling and deploying artificial intelligence with massive speed. Many experts believe that AI could increase unemployment and inequality and raise costs of retraining and reintegrating people into the workforce. Far from creating economic growth, therefore, the advent of AI could actually end up forcing a government, possibly this government, into even more spending than it presently contemplates. And then finally you get to this much vexed and discussed issue of so-called fiscal headroom, or to use a more technical phrase, the ghoulies in a vice problem. The suggestion has been that the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing expecting a different result. So far we've seen minimal fiscal adjustment at the statement, and meanwhile the Chancellor's managed to recreate just the same constraining conditions that existed beforehand. Now that's a situation entirely the government's own making. It was the Chancellor's decision to choose these fiscal rules, and it was her decision then to take measures that undermined economic growth. And she staked her own credibility and that of the government on those decisions. The result is that we will now have endless uncertainty and avoidable speculation about the fiscal position every week through the Comprehensive Spending Review and into the autumn budget. The Chancellor's refused to rule out making more cuts to spending. She may have to impose tax rises even so, and of course those could come even sooner than anticipated if the US decides to go ahead with the tariff it has suggested. So my question is, what will the leader feel in her own heart, and what will she say to her cabinet colleagues over the next few weeks as the full effects of these terribly damaging decisions become clear?
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I also join the honourable gentleman? You know, it was really heartwarming to hear so many tributes made to his father in last week's session, and I thought it really was the House at its best in these moments, and I thank him for bringing the eulogy to the floor of the House. And can I also join him in looking forward to Mothering Sunday? A day, maybe I'll get some rest, but we'll see. But I'll first have to pay a visit to my own mum, who I want to pay tribute to as well. And her very favourite phrase, which sticks with me throughout my life, which is "Them who does nout wrong." And I'll leave that with a few colleagues. That's one sort of lingering there. But as he says, yesterday we did hear the spring statement. We heard that this Labour government is taking on the unprecedented long-term challenges that this country faces. And I know the honourable gentleman and those opposite don't want to acknowledge it, but that is the reality, I'm afraid, Madam Deputy Speaker, because these problems that we face, they do run deep. There is huge global uncertainty, as he knows. There is years of underinvestment in infrastructure and in people, leading to low productivity and low growth. The effects of COVID, to which we were particularly exposed and his government did not address, leaving a generation of working-age adults consigned to benefits and 1 million young people not in education, training or work. And our economy, in the long shadow of Liz Truss, who destroyed fiscal confidence, leaving high and costly debt, interest rates high, and ordinary people paying the price. And I'm afraid that is the legacy which we are trying to address. And we are facing up to these realities and taking this country on a path to improved living standards, secure work, an NHS back on its feet, affordable homes to live in, and security through defence and our global leadership. And this is going to take time, and there's no denying that. But the forecast published yesterday, and he took a selective view of those, they do show the green shoots of recovery. You might not want to hear it, but as the OBR said yesterday, after this year, the growth forecasts, because of a result of our policies, those growth forecasts have been upgraded, with now Britain set to be the second fastest growing economy in the G7 this year and next year. And I'm glad that he's welcoming the boost in capital investment after years and years of underinvestment and downward trajectory in capital spending by his government. And that's led to another £2 billion extra earmarked for defence, another £2 billion more for affordable and social housing, and a transformation fund that will help reform our public services and deliver those better outcomes. And after his government, I'm afraid it is what they did, left millions languishing in the aftermath of COVID, we have got a plan to get people back to work. And we are making sure that the welfare safety net is sustainable for the long term. And that is a far cry, I'm afraid, from his government. And that also includes a pay rise for the lowest earners coming in next week. The Employment Rights Bill, which I'm afraid we are very proud of on this side of the House, giving dignity and security in work, protections for the most in need, and the biggest back-to-work programme in a generation. And even in the long shadow of Liz Truss, and it's a very long shadow, Madam Deputy Speaker, that looms large over our fiscal credibility. Interest rates are coming down, inflation is now under control, and stability is restored. And he asks me about the headroom, Madam Deputy Speaker, but I will just gently remind him that the headroom that the Chancellor set out yesterday is 50% more than the headroom she inherited from her predecessor. And I'll tell you, Madam Deputy Speaker, one of the most shocking aspects of what we inherited was the eye-watering costs of servicing our enormous debt. £100 billion a year we now spend servicing debt, and that's more than we spend on defence, justice and the Home Office combined, and that's what we inherited from the party opposite. But even in the face of these challenges, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Labour Chancellor announced yesterday that government's day-to-day spending will be going up above inflation each year for this forecast, and that will help restore our public services and giving support to those who need it the most. And I have to say, Madam Deputy Speaker, that is what Labour values in practice, making different choices for this country in the interests of working people. That's what Labour values are all about.
I call Derek Twigg.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I say to the Leader, refer to the issue around the Public Office Standards Bill, better known as the Hillsborough Law, and I'd like to refer to it as that. She will know my history and involvement in terms of what happened at Hillsborough and subsequently the independent panel report and the involvement I had with the negotiations between ministers and families and others. It does seem to me, from what I'm hearing, that we're approaching a similar situation where Whitehall is finding reasons to find problems with it rather than delivering it. It was only when we had the intervention of the then Home Secretary Alan Johnson and then Lady May of Maidenhead, when she became Home Secretary, we got things moving again. Can I ask, will she talk to her colleagues in government to ensure that the duty of candour, that parity of funding for families at inquest and others issues that we agreed on will be included in that bill and it be published soon?
Leader of the House.
Well, can I thank the Honourable Gentleman for raising this issue with me? I know of his long history with the Hillsborough disaster. In fact, I understand the Honourable Gentleman was there himself on that day. And like him and all of those families who are affected, they want to see justice and they want to see the Hillsborough law coming into effect. And this government remains committed to bringing forward legislation in that regard, as we have said. But we want to make sure, I think the most important thing in regard to this piece of legislation is that reflects the full range of concerns and experiences of those affected, and we want to, and we remain committed to working with the families and all those affected on making sure, as we work at pace on that piece of legislation, that it meets their expectations, and we'll be setting out our next steps shortly.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Marie Goldman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The government's welfare changes announced in yesterday's spring statement will see 150,000 carers losing £500 million of support by 2030. Carers receive precious little support already. Removing what little they get will do nothing to help people into work. Instead, it will just put more pressure on already overstretched carers, social care, and, as we all know, the NHS. And these changes come at a time when the NHS is in a state of flux and uncertainty. Integrated care boards who run local health services have been told to make eye-watering cuts of 50% to their running costs. But the government hasn't published an impact assessment on these ICB cuts or set out what the effect will be on patients. So are we to assume that the government is doing this in the dark? Should we assume perhaps that the government is closing its eyes and hoping for the best, but in reality not having a clue what it will mean for patients, for carers, for people in their time of need? Surely if they had properly assessed their proposals, and it was all going to be fine, they would waste no time in telling us. The alternative, of course, is that the government knows exactly how bad these cuts are going to be, what they're going to mean for our struggling health and care services. Either way, it is right that this House and the public should know what they know about the impact of their plans. So will the Leader of the House grant government time to discuss the impact on our NHS of cutting carer support and of their rushed cuts to integrated care boards?
Can I thank the Honourable Lady for that question, as ever. On the carers allowance and the reforms to welfare that have been set out to this House in a number of statements and urgent questions, our guiding principles are to ensure that the safety net is there for the most in need, that there's better support for those who can work, getting back into work, and that our welfare system and payments like independent payments and the associated carers allowance and other things that sit alongside it are there for the long term. And frankly, the situation as it stands today means that aspects of that are not sustainable into the long term, because, for example, we're seeing over 1,000 people a day, new people a day, being awarded personal independent payments, and that's simply not sustainable. However, I absolutely agree with the Honourable Lady that this needs to be done carefully and with compassion and in a managed way, and we do need to consider all aspects, especially those in relation to what might be considered passported benefits as well. There will be primary legislation coming forward on these issues shortly, and so they will be fully debated on the floor of the House, and I'm sure honourable members will take time to consider those. As she raises some questions about ICBs and the changes we're making to the National Health Service and NHS England, our intention and our aim is to get more money back onto frontline services, having less being spent on kind of management and duplication in the back office systems. Again, some of these aspects will need primary legislation. They will be brought forward, and therefore impact assessments and other things will come to light at that time.
Conor Rand.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The UK has one of the worst paternity offers in Europe, and nowhere is that more apparent than in the police force, where new research from Dad Shift shows that many frontline officers are taking just 1 week of paternity leave because that's all they're entitled to on full pay. Does the Leader of the House agree that when the government presents its review of paternity leave to this place, that a better deal for dads who serve on the front line in the force should be an important consideration?
Well, can I commend him for his campaigning on this issue, which I know he's raised in other ways, and for Dad Shift on their campaigning as well. Police officers work tirelessly for all of us to keep our streets safe and on behalf of the whole country, and they should be entitled to proper paternity leave. He's right to say we've got a review underway. We've got the Employment Rights Bill passing through Parliament at the moment, and I will ensure that these issues are considered as part of that review.
Chair of the Backbench Committee, Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In addition to the business that the leader has announced, it would be very helpful if we could be indicated whether we'll get Thursday the 24th of April in the Chamber, because we have debates requested. Equally, for the general debates that she's announced for Monday the 7th of April, we now have a queue of 37 debates waiting to be heard in the Chamber, which by my calculations will take us up to the November recess, even if there are no further applications. So it'd be very helpful to get some of those allocated. The business in Westminster Hall next week will be, in terms of Tuesday the 1st of April, a debate on eating disorder awareness, and on Thursday a debate on waste incinerators, followed by a debate on government support for Thames Water, and on Tuesday the 8th of April a debate on persecution of Christians. I'll follow up with the debates after the Easter recess next week, Madam Deputy Speaker. Now, on the 13th of April 1919, families gathered very peacefully in the Jallianwala Bagh to enjoy the sun, enjoy a day out with their families. General Dwyer, on behalf of the British Army, marched his troops in and ordered his troops to fire on those innocent people until they ran out of ammunition. At the end of that massacre, 1,500 people were dead and 1,200 injured. Eventually, General Dwyer was disgraced for that stain on the British Empire. In 2019, the then Prime Minister, Theresa May, recognised this was a stain on British colonial rule in India. But could we have a statement in government time? The anniversary of this will be on the 13th of April this year, when we're in recess. So could we have a statement from the government admitting to what went wrong and formally giving an apology to the people of India?
Well, as ever, can I thank the Chair of the Backbench Business Committee for arranging so much backbench business and for announcing it here today, which I much appreciate. And as ever, as we have discussed in private and here in these sessions, I will continue to endeavour to give him as much notice as possible of future slots for his committee. And can I thank him for raising this important matter of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, which, as he says, is one of the most notorious and shameful episodes in the history of British colonialism, particularly in India, but I think probably wider than that. I will absolutely make sure that Foreign Office ministers have heard his question today, and I will suggest that perhaps they bring forward a statement in advance of the anniversary.
Baggy Shanker.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. At the Copeland Street car park in my Derby South constituency, people are getting ripped off time after time with parking charges. Too often, broken parking machines or apps that won't load mean that well-intentioned drivers are fined. Too many of these unfair fines then go unchallenged, with parking companies pocketing the cash. Can the House please be updated on when government plans for a parking code of practice so we can protect drivers from these rip-off companies?
Well, I think for all of us as constituency MPs, we can absolutely recognise what he has raised here today, and many of us share his anger and frustration with these cowboy outfits and how they operate, ripping people off, as he absolutely says. We're determined to drive up standards across the sector. We've got a private parking code of practice due to be published in due course, and I'll absolutely make sure that this House is the first to hear about it.
John Lamont.
Thank you very much. Could we have a debate to recognise the important work that GPs and local medical practices play in our communities? Today in the public gallery we're joined by the practice manager of Coldstream Medical Practice, Yvonne Archibald, together with the practice's therapy dog, Hattie. Hattie is a huge part of the practice team and acts as an unofficial therapy pet for both patients and staff. Hattie has already been to visit number 10 Downing Street on another trip and is now enjoying her trip to the House of Commons to see you, Madam Deputy Speaker, in action.
Well, absolutely. Can I join him in welcoming Yvonne, the practice manager of Coldstream Medical Practice, to the House today, and of course Hattie, the therapy dog, who is with us. Oh, we're all looking at the public gallery to a very, very cute dog, Madam Deputy Speaker, who sounds like that Hattie would give anybody some much-needed therapy. Perhaps we can all go and stroke her after this session, because I feel like we probably need that. And I look forward to, maybe there was a video of Hattie chasing Larry the cat up Downing Street as well. But yeah, I thank him for raising this issue today and all the important work of therapy dogs like Hattie.
Josh MacAlister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Today marks the 45th anniversary of the Keeland disaster off the coast of Norway in the North Sea. The disaster took the lives of 123 men, 22 of them British, including Michael Fleming, Keith Hunter, Brian Graham, John Grady and Colin Lamb from Cleatormoor in my constituency. Many questions remain unanswered for the families of those who tragically lost their lives. So will my right honourable friend agree with me that we should call on the Norwegian authorities to make available all of the information they collected during their inquiry in the 1980s, much of which remains unpublished, so that the families of those who lost loved ones can finally get some answers?
Well, can I thank him for raising what is obviously a very important issue for his constituents and those still mourning the loss of friends and family in the Keeland disaster all of those years ago. I'm really sorry to hear that they feel there are still many questions that are unanswered. I know the British authorities are working closely with those in Oslo, in the Norwegian authorities, but I will absolutely ensure he gets a full reply about where that is up to and make sure that his constituents get the answers they deserve.
Andrew Rosindell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In the 1960s, my constituency of Romford, which is part of the London Borough of Havering, formed Greater London. But we're Essex. Now, the government are, of course, following through with a devolution plan for the county of Essex. So could I ask her to please allow Havering to be considered as part of that discussion? People are deeply unhappy with the control from inner London. We feel much closer connections to Essex, and provided there can be some guarantees about transport for London and policing and things of that sort, it makes absolute sense that we are part of that debate and that discussion. So would she arrange for a discussion, a debate on the floor of the House, and perhaps a meeting with myself and the Minister responsible to try and find a solution to this to make my constituents very happy?
Well, I hear his very strong representation to be part of the greater Essex area, for part of his constituency to be part of that, although I think what he was saying was he still liked the benefits of being part of the greater London area. But I hear what he says, and this is, look, we are embarking on some of the biggest evolution of powers that have ever happened by any government, and that is redrawing, a part of that is about redrawing the map for local communities. Absolutely, communities like his should continue through him to make those representations. I will certainly ensure that the Minister for Local Government has a discussion with him about the possibility of Havering joining Essex.
Kirsteen Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Boyle family have run Boghall Family Butchers in Bathgate, serving the community and my constituency with pride for 50 years. And just 3 weeks ago, the Boghall Butchers Doner Kebab Pie was crowned Supreme Champion at the British Pie Awards. Will the Leader of the House join me in congratulating the Boyle family for their dedicated service, their award-winning fusion pie, and join me in a visit to taste the pie of pies in Bathgate?
Well, Regular attenders of these sessions will know, Madam Deputy Speaker, that I'm very keen on invitations to taste the culinary outputs of constituents and constituencies, particularly those that come in the form of pies. Although I have to say I've not really heard of a kebab-filled pie before, Madam Deputy Speaker. Some might call it pioneering. Come on, give me some credit here. But can I join her in congratulating the Boyle family and all at Bog Hall Family Butchers?
Clive Jones.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last night, President Donald Trump announced a new 25% tariff on all imported cars going into the United States. And today, the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders revealed that vehicle production has declined by 11.6% in February, falling for a 12th month in a row. Alongside Stellantis closing their Luton plant and BMW scaling back investments in Oxford, the automotive industry needs greater confidence from this government. Will the Leader of the House ensure that there is a ministerial statement to update us on the government's efforts to protect this vital sector?
Well, I absolutely will ensure there is a ministerial statement as these things develop. He will be aware that we are intensively in negotiations with the US on tariffs and a broader sort of trading arrangements. He will appreciate that we're in a more unique position than many other countries insofar as the UK has a trade deficit, in fact, with the US, so they benefit more from that relationship than we do, and I think that does give us some advantage in the conversations that we're continuing to have, but we recognise how important this is to make sure that we aren't affected by tariffs if at all possible, but I will ensure that the House is updated.
Douglas MacAlister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. BBC Scotland announced last week that the much-loved long-running drama series River City will be decommissioned by autumn of 2026. The fictional town of Shield Inch is actually based in my constituency of West Dumbartonshire. The set and studio is in Dumbarton. BBC Scotland is part of the wider BBC Public Service broadcaster and has a duty to use public funds to produce Scottish content, including drama. Madam Deputy Speaker, after 23 years of supporting Scottish actors and production talent, I'm concerned that the skills and career development opportunities in the industry will be lost to the west of Scotland. So can I ask the Leader of the House to bring this to the attention of her colleague, the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, and that she urges the BBC to reconsider their decision and save Scotland's only domestic TV soap?
Well, I'm really sorry to hear that River City is being decommissioned by the BBC, and I know this will be of great concern to his constituents and across Scotland as well. He's absolutely right to say that the BBC has a duty to represent and serve and reflect all the communities of the UK, and that includes making sure there's Scottish content for a Scottish audience as well. I'll absolutely ensure that he gets a thorough response from the Secretary of State for DCMS, but can I thank him for raising what I know will be a very important matter here today.
Sir John Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As a Minister, I was partly involved in the introduction of a grocery code adjudicator. The aim of that supermarket ombudsman was to ensure a fair food chain. Yet years later, farmgate prices bear little relation to the prices that consumers pay, and farmers and growers still struggle to get a fair deal. So the Chairman of the Deference Select Committee has suggested the powers of the Ombudsman be increased. Can we have a debate in government time on that basis? Because my farmers and growers in Lincolnshire and food firms deserve a fair deal. They deserve to be protected from these greedy corporate behemoths.
Well, I think I remember, I'm not sure if he was the Minister at the time, but I think it was one of the first pieces of legislation that I sat on as a new Member of Parliament in 2012 was the Grocery Code Adjudicator. And it's something I've followed closely ever since, I'm sure you'd appreciate, and I hear it often in farming today in the small hours when I can't sleep as well. So I'm absolutely well aware of the issues that he raises, and to make sure that our farmers continue to get a good deal and they are not over overshadowed and overburdened by the supermarkets who maybe act in uncompetitive ways. I think that he will know that the code, I think, does need updating, and I will ensure that this House is kept fully abreast of all those developments and he has an input to it.
Dawn Butler.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I thank the Leader of the House and Shadow Leader of the House for reminding me and wishing my mum happy Mother's Day. She's got a bit of a spidey sense, so hopefully she'll see that on telly. Madam Deputy Speaker, Bid Foods, who's one of the UK's largest distributors, has suddenly de-recognised the GMB trade union, which has caused lots of concern and worry amongst the employees. And if you're a good employer, you shouldn't fear or worry after 30 years of having this bargaining agreement, then suddenly stop that arrangement. And I just wonder if the Leader of the House will join with me in urging Bid Foods to go around the table with the GMB and make sure that that relationship is re-established.
Yeah. Well, this sounds like quite a worrying development at Bid Foods to break the recognition agreement with their trade union. She's absolutely right to say the evidence is really clear that where these recognition agreements exist, it works in the interests of the business and in the interests of the employees as well. And that's why we're sort of strengthening some of these aspects in the Employment Rights Bill. But I will absolutely ensure that ministers take a look at this case.
Dave Dugan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yesterday, in my trademark balanced and consensual way, I asked the Chancellor of the Exchequer if she would review her tax and spending plans. I gave her 3 principal examples of how she could raise substantially more revenue, and that would enable her, hopefully, to not have to cut disability benefits quite as much or possibly even at all. And she replied to me with a response about the Trident nuclear deterrent. Madam Deputy Speaker, I know what my position is on that, and I know that it's at odds with most of my colleagues in this chamber, but so too do my constituents when they elected me twice. So can we have a debate on government time about minimum standards of responses that elected members in this chamber, whatever the colour of their rosette, can enjoy from ministers?
Well, he's very politely raised this issue with me today, and I thank him for that. And he will know, and he's a regular attender at these sessions as well, that I do take ministerial responses very seriously, that they are forthcoming, that they are open, and that they are timely as well. So I will certainly look into the issue that he raises. I think he was raising with the Chancellor about whether we could raise more taxes from the wealthy, and that was the issue that he raises. So just for the record, I mean, what I would say to him is that we are doing that. We have been doing that in a number of ways, whether that's, and lots of these issues have been very controversial, but whether that's reducing the VAT breaks on private schools, whether it's increasing taxes on those that own private jets, increases in capital gain tax. We've taken on the excess profits of the energy companies as well, and of course dealing with the non-dom tax status, all of which have raised billions of pounds for our public services and for what we are doing. So we absolutely think that those with the broadest shoulders should bear the highest price, but as he says, I will make sure that he gets forthcoming replies.
Orinda Just.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last week and at the weekend we saw the opening ceremony, group games, semi-finals and finals of the Kabaddi World Cup played at WV Active Aldersley in my constituency of Wolverhampton West, with the rest of the games being played at other venues in the West Midlands. Madam Deputy Speaker, this is the first time ever that the Kabaddi World Cup has been held outside Asia. Will the Leader of the House please join me, the Member of Parliament for Wolverhampton North East who attended the matches with me, and the Member of Parliament for Wolverhampton South East in congratulating all the organisers and the England teams who finished runners-up to India for having had such a wonderful and successful tournament, which is a testament to the rich cultural and sporting diversity that we have in Wolverhampton and in the West Midlands.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Can I congratulate him and the other Wolverhampton Members of Parliament for their support of the first World Cup Kabaddi Games outside of India. What a fantastic achievement for Wolverhampton. Outside Asia, I was thank you for correcting me from there, outside Asia, and this is a great achievement for Wolverhampton, and I was really pleased that the government's Commonwealth Games Legacy Enhancement Fund helped secure some of the funding for that, and maybe next time England might do better than runners-up.
Wendy Martin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Right Honourable Lady may be pleased that I'm not going to raise rats and squeaky blinders today, but I did want to raise litter because it is an expensive nuisance. And last week marked the start of the Great British Spring Clean. So would she join me in thanking all those individuals, community groups, schools around the country who take part in this initiative? But more importantly, many of them do this to help our communities day in, day out throughout the year. And could we have a debate in government time about tackling litter and fly tipping, which blights so many of our communities?
Well, absolutely join her in congratulating, I think, the Great British Spring Clean, which sounds brilliant, and I think probably is needed in the streets of Birmingham right now, which she could perhaps, I thought she was then going to turn the question into. But, certainly I think these kind of voluntary activities certainly can't make up for failing bin services, but, are a very important part of keeping our streets and our communities bright and clean.
Liam Conlon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Recently, I had the pleasure of meeting Lucas de Gouveia from Beckenham, who at 14 years old is already representing GB at wheelchair tennis. Lucas contacted me to ask for help in raising money to pay for equipment and travel to participate in competitions which are more expensive for disability sport. I've written to a range of companies on Lucas's behalf and hope to meet them with Lucas soon. Will the Minister join me in congratulating Lucas on his incredible achievements so far and wish us well as we try to secure sponsorship for him?
Well, absolutely. I wish Lucas all the best for this season and his future career. And we have a great legacy in this country of producing some of the best wheelchair tennis players across the world. He's given a really good advert and shout out today. And I hope there's some companies watching this session who might want to give him some sponsorship.
Pippa Hurling.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Adam Brooks Hospital in my constituency of South Cambridgeshire has launched a major expert clinical inquiry following worrying evidence of 9 young children having suffered outcomes that are lower than should have been expected following surgery by a now suspended paediatric orthopaedic surgeon. I've written a letter to the hospital requesting that a report from 2016 into the same area be sent to the Secretary of State and I would like to ask the Leader of the House that you help secure an opportunity for me to meet with the Secretary of State to discuss that report, the new inquiry, to ensure it is open and transparent, to reassure patients, family and the staff of that organisation, and to ensure that there is no retaliation against any whistleblowers.
Well, absolutely. I will ensure that she does get the meeting and responses that she requests. This sounds like a very difficult and challenging case, but she's absolutely right that whistleblowers and all of those involved should be able to come forward to such inquiries, safe in the knowledge that they will be protected, but also I think this really is part of the culture that we need in our National Health Service to make sure that lessons can always be learnt in an open and transparent and in a way that doesn't blame people incorrectly.
Barry Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I was proud to serve in this House when Tony Blair and Gordon Brown established the Department for International Development and when they established the Drop the Debt campaign. I was proud when the leader and I stood on a manifesto which promised that we would restore the international aid budget to 0.7% of GNI. So could we have a debate, please, in government time on how it may be possible to find a lost moral compass?
Well, look, I think we all share the pride that the previous Labour government did in the area of debt reduction and aid for some of the poorest countries across the world. We're also proud that we have a commitment which remains to returning our aid budget to 0.7% of GDP. We did have a statement to this House about the need by the Prime Minister about the need for us to find some extra funding for defence expenditure in the changing and uncertain and insecure world in which we find ourselves. But we remain absolutely committed to returning the aid budget to the 0.7% levels we said.
Sir Julian Lewis.
The Leader of the House will surely agree that when we send our armed forces into dangerous situations, they deserve to be protected against vexatious, litigious claims which are ultimately thrown out, but only after great expense, distress and strain. There was a rather inconclusive exchange at defence questions on Monday as to whether we should withdraw or in fact derogate from the ECHR for the proposed force that may go on a peacekeeping mission in Ukraine. So may we actually have a statement from a senior law officer confirming that it is perfectly possible to derogate from the ECHR for a specific mission like this without in any way committing ourselves to staying in or leaving the ECHR in the long term?
Well, he raises a really important matter, and I'm sorry that the answer he or maybe a colleague received in defence questions on Monday wasn't satisfactory, and I'll look into that and make sure that he does get one. And absolutely, I think this is a good matter to raise with a law officer who has, I think we've got Attorney General questions at the beginning of May, but in the meantime, I will ensure he gets a good reply about that important question.
Mark Ferguson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. To have a PhD in oncology, to be a GP, to work in a women's prison, each would mark you out as a remarkable person, but Dr. Jennifer Llewellyn did all three. In her final email to me on the 29th of January, she said, "I implore you to keep up the fight for those with cholangiocarcinoma." I regret to inform the House that Dr. Llewellyn passed away on the 15th of March, leaving behind her partner and 3 children, as well as all of the rest of those in my community who loved, respected and relied on her. In Dr. Llewellyn's name, I want to keep my promise to her and keep on fighting. So will the Leader of the House make time for a debate on the treatment of those with cholangiocarcinoma?
Well, can I thank him for raising that and pay my tribute to Dr. Jennifer Llewellyn as well. She sounds like a remarkable, really truly remarkable woman, and I'm really sorry to learn that she's no longer with us and leaving behind her partner and 3 children who I'm sure are incredibly proud of the contribution that she made across all of those professions and that he described. And he rightly raises the treatment and the supply chain for medicines, and the Department for Health is committed to making sure that people like Dr. Llewellyn do get the treatment that they need in a timely fashion, but I will make sure that a minister responds to him fully.
Anne Davies.
Diolch, Madam Dirprwy Llefarydd. 172 of my constituents have been affected by the British Coal Staff Superannuation Scheme scandal. And in the autumn budget, the UK Government released equivalent funds from the Miners' Pension Scheme, but not for those in the BCSS. The Government's failure to release frozen funds is causing immense hardship, such as that caused to the Allied Steel and Wire workers. And pensioners who have paid into the system for decades are now left without the support that they deserve. What assurance can the Leader of the House give me that the Government is working towards a fair resolutions for those affected by this scandal? And can we please have a written statement on this issue? Diolch.
Sorry to hear the case that she raises an important issue. Yeah, we have been taking steps to make sure there's a fair resolution in these cases. I will ensure she gets a full update on the matter, and should it progress further, I'll make sure that that's brought forward to the floor of the House.
Matt Weston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last Saturday was the anniversary, the sad anniversary, the 8th anniversary of the passing of PC Keith Palmer who died in the line of duty. He died securing this place. We should remember him. Up and down the country, as we saw last summer, police officers put themselves in harm's way, securing and making safe the public. They often get injured in such events. And if they are injured and they are forced to retire early, they miss out on their long service duty medal. So I wondered if the Leader of the House would join me or arrange perhaps a meeting for me with the appropriate minister to discuss the need for an injury retirement medal for those officers who pay a sacrifice in making the public safe.
Leader of the House.
Well, can I thank him for giving us a moment to remember Keith Palmer. Many of us were there that day, and we will never forget the fact that he gave his life in protecting those of us inside on that day. But he's absolutely right. This sounds like a really good idea, an injury retirement medal to make up for those who would otherwise have got a long service medal, and I will ensure that the Home Secretary hears his call for that today and he gets a good reply.
John Cooper.
Speaker, thank you. The A77 and A75 roads are absolutely critical to the people of the southwest of Scotland, but they're also critical to the UK because they service the exceptionally busy ferry port of Cairnryan, which links us with our friends in Northern Ireland. The difficulty with these roads is obvious if you ever travel them. There's another difficulty, however, and that's that the Department of Transport here don't seem to think it's anything to do with them. The Secretary of State for Scotland is too busy to meet me to discuss this. And when the Honourable Member for Ayr, Carrick and Cumnock, who I see on her place on the government benches, wrote to the Transport Secretary in Scotland, we received a high-handed letter saying that it would be inappropriate to meet us. Madam Deputy Speaker, what's inappropriate is the way devolution does not appear to be working. Can we pluck from the logjam of backbench business committee debate ideas, one on devolution and how it's failing?
Leader of the House.
Well, I'd certainly agree with him that I don't think the government in Scotland is working. It's working effectively in the interests of his constituents and others. I'm sorry to hear about the difficulties he's had in raising the issue of the A77 road in his constituency, and I'm sure in others as well. I will certainly ask that the Scottish Minister meets with him to discuss that, and we can get right to the bottom of who's actually responsible and that he speaks to those who are.
Elaine Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As part of East Ayrshire's Youth Awards, pupils from Bellsbank Primary School in my constituency in Ayr, Carrick and Cumnock won an intergenerational champion award. Ellie, Sienna and Lacey recently joined Bellsbank Project Sewing Group and made footer blankets. They donated these to the elderly residents in a local nursing home suffering from dementia. Will the Leader of the House join in me with congratulations to the pupils of Bellsbank on their award and their enthusiasm for learning with older people?
Well, absolutely. It's always lovely and brilliant to hear such stories of this, and I'll join her in congratulating Ellie, Sienna and Lacey for making their footer blankets, I think they're called, for the elderly residents of her constituency. What a lovely story, and it's just a reminder of the importance of these kind of intergenerational programmes.
Tessa Munns.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can the Leader of the House ask her colleagues in the Department for Health and Social Care for a statement explaining the rationale behind a decision last month to alter the eligibility criteria for additional compensation in the infected blood compensation scheme, where the special category mechanism was replaced with the severe health condition award, which means that this one and only group of 916 people with hepatitis C, including some of my constituents, have been singled out and are now prevented from receiving the supplementary compensation they expected and desperately need, because these people are so unwell.
Leader of the House.
Well, can I thank you for raising it? It's actually a matter for the Cabinet Office rather than the Health Department, but thank you for raising that. She's absolutely right. The government is committed to paying comprehensive compensation, not just to those infected, but to those affected as well. We've set aside £11.8 billion to compensate those affected in full. I know of the case that the issue that she's talking about, and we are determined to sort of work closely with the Infected Blood Compensation Authority to ensure that everybody impacted is aware and is part of those conversations. So I'll ensure she gets a detailed response.
David Williams.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's no surprise that under a Labour government, hospital waiting lists have fallen for 5 months in a row. At the Royal Stoke Hospital, which brilliantly serves my constituents in Stoke-on-Trent, Kidsgrove and beyond, there are now 3,311 fewer patients waiting 18 weeks or longer to be seen compared to July last year. Can the Leader of the House please make time for a debate on reducing hospital waiting lists so that we can continue to sustain our progress in this area?
Leader of the House.
Well, absolutely, and I know from talking to many colleagues that they really share his enthusiasm for what we've seen, which is quite a significant fall in waiting lists for the 5th month in a row, and that's having a direct impact on his constituents and many others as well. We've also hit our pledge to deliver over 2 million more elective care appointments, so this will further drive down waiting lists, but I will ensure this House is kept fully up to date as our progress to cutting waiting times, as we said we would.
And before I call the next member, members will have seen that we've got over 20 members on the feet and we've got around 20 minutes left. So please keep questions and answers short. Shanker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Yesterday, the Office for Students levied a wholly disproportionate fine on the University of Sussex after what looks like a flawed and wasteful investigation at a time when the Higher Education Secretary is in financial crisis. So could the Leader of the House ask the Education Secretary if she will be responding to concerns about why the Office took so long in conducting its investigation, its behaviour, the cost it incurred and the ramifications of what is a very serious judgment?
Well, I understand this is a very serious judgment which will be of concern to her constituents, and I recognise that it has taken some time and it's led to a significant fine on the university as well. We've had a few urgent questions and statements on these broader matters to this House in recent months, but I will ensure that the Secretary of State responds to her today and comes to the House with an update.
Joanna Baxter.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last week, I was alerted to the fact that one of my constituents, Owen Haggerty, a serving Royal Navy officer, had been detained in a jail in Bahrain. I immediately made contact with colleagues in the relevant departments, but much to my surprise, no one would engage with me to inform me of his welfare or the current status of his case, and that was because apparently I did not have his explicit consent. He was sitting in a jail in Bahrain. I had his mother's consent, she was also a constituent, and yet still nobody would speak to me. It has been over a week now, and until this morning, that the FCDO has now contacted me to say that they now have Owen's consent to talk to me about his case. I'm very pleased that he has been granted a royal pardon by the King of Bahrain. But can the Leader of the House ensure that the FCDO work with me to arrange his urgent deportation back to this country, and that we avoid further delays in the future to MPs securing access to the information they need to support their constituents?
Leader of the House.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear of her experiences with the FCDO, but I am pleased that Owen Haggerty has now received that pardon this morning. She raised this matter with me a couple of days ago, which is why I raised it with the Foreign Office and which is why they were in touch with her this morning. That's absolutely my role as Leader of this House when those conversations are not forthcoming. But I can assure her that both the Ministry of Defence and the Foreign Office have been working tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the pardon, and I will ensure they continue to work with her and Owen's family to make sure he comes back to the UK.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In reply to an earlier question, the leader referenced that the BBC should serve all local communities. It's around 18 months now since we had a shake-up of BBC local radio, and the result has been it's much less local. So could we have a debate in government time to consider how the BBC could be held to account for that and to actually provide local radio that is indeed more local?
Leader of the House.
Well, I know the shake-up in local radio caused a great deal of concern to members across this House at the time that it was being proposed and implemented in the last Parliament, and many members raised their concerns directly with the Director General and others at that time. I'm certainly happy to raise with the Department how that has gone and what the feedback has been, and will ensure that he and other members are updated of that and kept informed.
Julie Minns.
Madam Deputy Speaker, it will be 4 years this summer since Cumbria's Newton Rigg Agricultural College closed its door, and with it so ended the last course in hill farming available in England. Given the importance of hill farming and upland land management in constituencies like mine, will the Leader of the House please make time for a debate on the importance of land-based education and skills?
Leader of the House.
Well, absolutely. I'm really sorry to hear that the hill farming course that she describes for her constituents is no longer available. Doesn't sound like a good development to me. And as part of our sort of programme of skills and education, I know that ministers will be very keen to discuss with her how we can ensure that agricultural education, such as hill farming, is at the centre of those thoughts.
Tom Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Yesterday we were joined by some of my constituents in the Speaker's Gallery for PMQs, Harry Brown and his family. Harry had battled childhood cancer and overcame it. Yesterday, after PMQs, I spoke with him about his experience, and he talked about how he had to go from as far up as Newcastle and the RVI hospital up there down to Great Ormond Street throughout his treatment. So will the Leader of the House make time in government time for a debate about how we can better support childhood cancers and treat people closer to home?
Hear, hear. Leader of the House.
Well, can I thank him for bringing Harry Brown into Parliament yesterday and for talking to him at great length about his experiences. He's absolutely right. I think this balance between ensuring that we have specialist care, and that often is centred in certain places, whilst making sure that there is care in the community, is absolutely at the heart of what we're trying to do to make sure that there is preventative community and good NHS care for all of those who need it all of the time.
Gordon McKee.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The football pitch at Marylee Primary School in my constituency is used by hundreds of kids every day, but it is in a terrible condition. It needs redone, but the local SNP-run council is refusing to provide funding, meaning local parents have to identify grant funding. Will the Leader of the House join with me in praising those local parents and make time for a debate on community football pitches?
Leader of the House.
Well, absolutely. I'm sorry to hear that local people are having to fundraise for such an issue, but he's absolutely right. Football pitches are at the heart of our community. We've got, for England, we've got a football bill going through which will support grassroots funding. The Scottish Government now has a very good settlement, big budget that it's had from this government, so hopefully they can use some of that to support his community better.
MacAlister.
Could we have a debate on the upcoming latest iteration of the crippling Irish Sea border, namely the parcels border, which is due to become effective from the 1st of May, which will see every parcel moving from Great Britain to Northern Ireland, including personal parcels from a grandmother to a grandchild, being subject to the requirements of the EU customs border, and particularly damaging for business, because business-to-business parcels can only be sent if the sender belongs to the trusted trader scheme and pays the fee, if they make a customs declaration including where the goods came from, what they are. When can we discuss the fact that this United Kingdom is being partitioned and severed by an unnecessary border, namely in the Irish Sea?
Leader of the House.
Well, can I thank him for that? As he will be aware, we are committed to the Windsor framework, but we are committed to also working through these types of issues that he raises, and those conversations are ongoing, and I will ensure he's updated on where they're up to before the 1st of May.
I really do want to get all members in if I possibly can, so please be kind to each other, otherwise some people will not get in. Josh Dean.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This Saturday, my constituent David Kiddie will be starting his 300-kilometre walk for 2-year-old Lily. Lily was diagnosed with metachromatic leukodystrophy in late 2024, a rare progressive degenerative disease that will sadly, in her family's words, slowly take her away. David is raising money to support Lily and her family on this difficult journey and raise awareness of MLD. So would the Leader of the House join me in wishing David well as he prepares to begin his walk this weekend?
Yeah. Leader of the House.
Well, absolutely. I'll join him in supporting David in his fundraising efforts for Lily, who suffers from MLD, and thank him for raising that today, and hopefully people will give to his efforts.
Jim Shannon.
Deputy Speaker, in Nigeria, where religion shapes many aspects of life, over 3.5 million people have been violently displaced from their homes. Religious leaders have been kidnapped and killed. Communities long to return to their land, rebuild their lives and be protected from marginalisation by extremist groups. They seek restoration of security and dignity, yet the camps they often live in lack basic aid, supplies and food, while those responsible for the atrocities continue to act with impunity. So will the Leader of the House asked the FCDO, Minister Secretary of State, to set out what steps government has taken to support efforts to end impunity for the perpetrators of these crimes, and if a reporting mechanism is established to ensure transparency in how UK aid money has been used in Borno, Yobe and Anambra states. Thank you so much.
Leader of the House.
Well, can I first of all, as somebody who I think has attended every single business question I have done as I've been Leader of the House, congratulate him on his 70th birthday on Tuesday this week. I think the Honourable Gentleman serves special mention for that. And can I thank him for yet again raising an important matter about the freedom of religion and belief for all, and I will ensure that the Foreign Office Minister has heard his call today and he gets a response back.
Jim Dixon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm pleased to say that the excellent Dartford Sharks Basketball Club will be playing in the Medway League Men's Cup final this weekend. However, like sports clubs all across the country, they've been finding it increasingly difficult to access regular facilities for them to train and play, with schools and colleges unable to afford to open their doors to hosting external sports clubs. Might the Leader of the House join me in wishing the Sharks luck for their final on Saturday, but also would she make time for a debate on how we can increase access to sports facilities in public buildings like schools?
Leader of the House.
Well, absolutely. I'll join him in wishing Dartford Sharks all the very best. I think we've got a debate coming up soon on supporting these types of measures, but this government is absolutely committed to grassroots sports facilities like the ones he describes, and I hope that the Dartford Sharks will be able to make use of that soon.
Jacob Collier.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The National Brewery Centre in Burton was shamefully closed under the last Conservative administration and Member of Parliament, depriving us of an important link to our brewing history. The current Labour-led East Staffordshire Borough Council is working at pace to reopen it, and I am keen to get government support. Given the importance of our brewery heritage to our national identity and local economy, will the Leader of the House grant a debate on support for our brewing heritage?
Leader of the House.
Well, I know brewing heritage is of particular interest to him and his constituent. I thought he was going to invite me to taste that, but maybe I can assist him in getting the brewery reopened first, and then we can enjoy some of its fine fare.
Anna Gelderd.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This week, the disappointing decision was made to increase tolls on the Tamar crossings. While this essential infrastructure must remain operational, I'm very concerned about the disproportionate financial burden placed on households and businesses in South East Cornwall. Can my right honourable friend make time to discuss this vital issue of improving connectivity and supporting growth in the South West as a priority? And will she ask the relevant minister to work with me to ensure rural communities feel the benefit of Labour's commitment to an integrated transport network?
Yeah. Leader of the House.
Well, that's an excellent question she raises there, and she's absolutely right that rural communities like those in South East Cornwall deserve to be better connected and integrated, and that shouldn't come at a heavy cost to residents in her constituency. So I will ensure that she gets a full reply about that, and this is something that I'm sure the House will want to be updated on.
Martin Rhodes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. An issue of concern for constituents in Glasgow North and elsewhere is the unregulated use of off-road vehicles. Anyone can easily purchase one without registration, and their subsequent use can lead to antisocial behaviour, and in some places, including in my own constituency in recent years, to sad and very tragic consequences. Therefore, will the Leader of the House provide time to debate the regulation, including registration of these off-road vehicles?
House.
Well, absolutely. This gets raised with me all the time, and that's why one of my favourite pieces of legislation and measures in that legislation is the Crime and Policing Bill, which will give police the powers to seize these vehicles and crush them, most crucially, get rid of them. But he's absolutely right. They're a blight on our communities, and we'll have ample time to debate this important legislation in the coming months.
Laura Kirk-Smith.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm in touch with many parents and carers of SEND children who have to battle too hard with Buckinghamshire Council to get their EHCPs, their school places, their home-to-school transport. Will the Leader join me in recognising the extraordinary lengths that parents have to go to support their SEND kids? And will she continue to ensure that this House prioritises the desperately needed reforms to the SEND system?
Well, she's absolutely right that families with children with SEND needs do face real barriers in getting the support that they need. We've got a broken system, but also a system that doesn't give great outcomes and doesn't work for families either, and that's why we are looking at reforming SEND, and I will ensure this House and she is kept updated.
Dan Aldridge.
Speaker, my constituent Tia Brown has been refused vital treatment for premature ovarian insufficiency, a serious condition affecting 1 in 100 women under 40 in the UK, despite her doctors recommending she is given the treatment and it being freely available just over in Wales. POI causes early ovarian failure and increases the risk of serious health issues, and as a mother of twins, Tia is advocating for her health and her family's future, but also all the women needing access to this critical treatment. Would the Leader of the House support me to bring a debate to this House on premature ovarian insufficiency and the need for access to treatment across the UK?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, the government is clear that this is not acceptable, that his constituent has not been able to get the care and support that she needs in dealing with premature ovarian insufficiency. He's raised these matters now here on the floor of the House. I will ensure this particular case is looked at, but the wider concerns that he's raised are a matter of concern for ministers.
Blair McDougall.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I wonder if we could make time for a debate about local sporting excellence so we can celebrate, for example, Wren 96 Swimming Club in my constituency who won 73 medals in one weekend, or GHA Rugby in Giffnock who won the championship, or the young athletes of Giffnock North Athletic Club who came home with a haul of medals and personal bests. And I wonder if she'll join me in thanking the army of volunteers who are behind that success, not just in my constituency, but right across the country.
Well, absolutely. I won't repeat all the clubs that he mentioned, but he's absolutely right to say that grassroots sports clubs are at the heart of our community, and they are nearly in all cases run by fantastic volunteers who give their life to them, and they really do provide a great opportunity for young people and others to keep fit and get together in these activities.
Paul Wall.
Deputy Speaker. This past month, members of the Valley Thai Boxing Club in Whitworth, Rochdale, have been representing Team GB in Bangkok in the World Muay Thai Boxing Championships. They've just come back with a record number of medals, 8 golds, 3 silver and 4 bronze, including a bronze for my constituent Lynette Cook's son, Keaton. Will the Leader join me in congratulating Keaton and all the Team GB members for representing our country in what is one of Britain's fastest growing sports?
Well, absolutely. I join him in congratulating Valley Thai Boxing Club and their fantastic haul of medals that they have won, and it's great to highlight this growing sport in his constituency, but to a wider audience here this morning.
Ewan Sternbank.
Madam Deputy Speaker, Ben and Melanie have paid thousands over the odds for their energy bills because the energy provider failed to provide accurate billing for them on their prepayment meter and wiped thousands in credit from their account. This energy provider has now missed 9 appointments they scheduled with Ben and Mel. Would the Leader of the House support a debate on how Ofgem can improve service standards and hold energy companies to account when they fail my constituents?
Leader of the House.
Well, absolutely. I'm really sorry to hear of the experience of Ben and Melanie, his constituent, and I hope the energy provider he highlights have heard this case today and will quickly sort this out. The government is working with Ofgem to reinforce our expectation that if rules are not complied with, then Ofgem will enforce them, and I'll make sure that ministers have heard that today.
Lawrence Turner.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the terminally ill adults end of life bill has been substantially changed in committee. So can the Leader of the House give an update on when the House may see the impact assessment for that bill, and can the Leader give an assurance that sufficient time will be available for members to consider that analysis before we get to the bill's remaining stages?
Leader of the House.
Well, can I thank him for raising that? I know it is an important matter for many colleagues across the House. He will be aware that the committee stage of this bill ended this week. The bill has been considerably amended. I think they've accepted over 100 amendments from both sides of the debate. The government is committed to ensuring that the impact assessment is available for members in good time before report stage of the bill, but I'm sure he can recognise that given how much the bill has been amended, that will be a challenge, but we will do our very best to make sure that members have as ample time as possible to look at it.
Tom Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I was thrilled to be at Vitality Stadium to see AFC Bournemouth women's team crown the FA Women's National League Division 1 South West champions. Yeah. Thank you. And it adds to the success of Queen's Park Ladies, an under-12s team that beat all the boys in their first season to win that league. Will the Leader of the House join me in congratulating these two teams, and might she on Sunday also wish the best of luck to the men's team as they face Manchester City in the FA Cup at home?
Absolutely not. Well, I won't go that far because I will be spending Mothering Sunday watching City hopefully win and progress into the next round. But I'll certainly join him in congratulating the women's football teams in his constituency on beating the boys, but also winning the tournament as they have.
Sonia Kumar.
Madam Deputy Speaker, Darren, one of my constituents, recently shared a harrowing experience of his father, Les, who went to A&E from a fall. Unfortunately, they called an ambulance and it took 1 hour. They said it would arrive, but unfortunately, it took 6.5 hours. This is not an isolated incident, and such delays are becoming all too common across the country. Will the Leader of the House allow government time to discuss ambulance waiting lists across the Black Country, and what more can be done to ensure no community is left behind when it comes to emergency care?
Leader of the House.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear of the passing of Darren's father, Les, and the wait times that they endured are frankly unacceptable. And what she's describing, both in terms of ambulance wait times and emergency care wait times, are a symptom of what we have inherited, what the country has inherited in terms of the chronic state of our National Health Service. We're determined to turn that around. But as she rightly says, unfortunately, emergency care is facing a great number of challenges. But I will ensure that the Minister has heard her question today.
I think it's worth saying thank you to everybody for keeping it short. I'm sure we'll get everybody in. John Stinger.
Deputy Speaker, I'll be quick. One of my constituents in Brownsover Rugby has been flooded several times over the last 10 years from leaks in Severn Trent pipes. The company makes good the damage, but does the Leader agree that this is the bare minimum, that they should compensate for emotional harm, something I saw myself on Saturday, that they should also consider buying homes at market rate when people can't sell, and that they should divert more resources away from shareholder dividends and towards fixing the infrastructure for the long term, so that my constituents feel the benefit of first world amenities like proper water infrastructure? And would you consider time for a debate on this?
Leader of the House.
Well, look, absolutely. The water companies, the water infrastructure in this country, has not been working, has not been fit for purpose for a number of times, for a long time. In fact, we've already passed the Water Act, which will begin to turn this around, and we will have further measures coming forward as we look more broadly at the water companies and how we can take that forward.
Rachel Blake.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Since I last raised the negative impact of short-term lets in my constituency in this chamber, Central London Forward has brought out new research estimating that 17,000 properties in my constituency are lost to short-term lets, and they believe that a significant proportion of those is one individual owner owning up to 21 properties themselves. I thank the Leader of the House for the comments that she made previously, and can she recognise the case that I'm making that the cities of London and Westminster should be a pilot in the much-needed forthcoming government registration scheme?
Leader of the House.
Well, absolutely, and I know of these issues very well from my own constituency, and as she says, we are introducing the short-term let registration scheme, and we're abolishing the furnished holiday lets tax regime to remove some of the tax incentives, and from April, councils can also opt to charge a council tax premium of up to 100% on second homes, but we'll absolutely ensure that ministers hear her plea to be part of that registration scheme.
Lee Picture.
Madam Deputy Speaker. My remarkable constituent Pat Smith has dedicated 60 years of his life to coaching basketball, football and other sports, including 37 years leading the Hatfield Flyers Basketball Club. Will the Leader of the House join me in thanking Pat for his exceptional service, being an absolute brilliant role model to many generations, and wishing him a happy and fulfilling retirement?
Leader of the House.
Well, absolutely. I join him in congratulating Pat and wishing him a fantastic and happy retirement. I think he deserves a good pat on the back.
And the last question, Lee Ingham.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last weekend in my constituency of Stafford, Eccleshall and the Villages, I held an SEND forum for parents, carers, professionals and teachers. And whilst I heard a range of worrying and heartfelt stories, emerging from all of them were real concerns about how Conservative-led Staffordshire County Council communicates with the parents of SEND children. With that in mind, will the House consent to a debate on the guidelines for communication for parents of SEND children to make sure that communications aren't adversarial, challenging and humiliating for them?
Well, I'm really sorry to hear that the Staffordshire County Council has fallen short in their communications and dealing with families and parents of those with SEND needs, because this is always a very difficult, challenging time for families, and so councils like that should really be much more sensitive about how they deal with the barriers that people face.
That completes business.